War I. Number 5. Wild Man Ghouls. During World War I, one of the scariest stories soldiers told was about a wild man who lived in no man's land. People thought that the haze on battlefields was full of crazy, unhinged group of deserters. Soldiers often said that at night they saw dark figures moving quickly across the horizon. Many men said that these monsters, which they called ghouls, hid in the mud to avoid being seen, and only came out to steal from dead bodies, or, in some stories, to eat them. Different people had different ideas about what the wild men were. Some thought they were soldiers who gave up on war and were just trying to stay alive, while others thought they were really cannibalistic crazies who walked around battlefields at night. The officer may have made up the story to stop soldiers from leaving their post, which is a very real possibility. If men thought there were monsters among them, just outside their lines, when the battle got really bad, they would be less likely to run for the hills. The fact that the story was first written down in a memoir in 1920, which became a big deal after the war was over, makes it less likely to be true. Number 4. Cossacks in Britain. Not only soldiers could have paranormal experiences, but civilians could as well. One of the most interesting examples of mass hysteria is the belief that millions of Cossacks from the Russian army were on their way to England. At the end of August 1914, newspapers in Britain reported that very scary-looking men with beards and fur hats were seen riding trains. Then the story started to spread, and an international newspaper soon reported that almost 1 million Russian soldiers were passing through Britain. People everywhere said they saw signs of the Russians on their way to France. Ruble warriors marching toward London Bridge Station were said to have stopped chocolate machines from working, and people in trains and cars were heard asking for vodka. Even after British intelligence services found out that the rumors were not true, they did not stop spreading them. This helped the Allies because a smart German command sent 2 divisions to the Belgian coast to protect it from the supposed Cossack reinforcements. But there wasn't a big Russian army moving from Britain to attack Germany. The Germans won the Battle of Marne only after making the strategic decision to retreat. It cost them the battle. Did the British government say that stories about Cossacks in Britain were not true? But by this time, the story was so popular that many people still believed it. In reality, a lot of soldiers did travel from the north of Britain to the ports in the south, but they were British reservists. To hide where they were, these battalions were told to pull the shades down on their train cars and travel at night. To add to the myth, some British battalions spoke thick dialects like Gaelic, which many people thought were Russian. When you look at the myths and strange things that happened during World War I, it is more sad than scary to see how the war changed their minds and made sure no one survived. Everyone who fought in World War I was a victim of the war, and they had to live with the effects of the trauma for the rest of their lives. People today can look at these soldiers' ghost stories and figure out what might have happened. For the men involved, there was no reason for the violence, destruction, and chaos that happened without reason. Every day was hard because everything they thought they knew about themselves and the world around them was broken. From ghosts to aliens, everything became possible. Number 3. Red Baron and the UFO. Baron Manfred von Richthofen was a German fighter pilot. He was also known as the Red Baron. He is best known for his amazing victories over Allied planes and for being a great pilot in general. But he may also be known for shooting down a UFO in 1917. Peter Weitstrick, another German pilot, remembers when he and the Red Baron were on a mission over Belgium early in the morning and saw an aeroplane that looked like an upside-down saucer. They opened fire on it right away. The Red Baron shoots at the strange-looking plane and watches as it crashes violently through the trees and lands on the ground below. 2 human-like figures are said to have rushed out of the UFO and into the woods. This is very strange. It should be said, though, that the story was first published in a satirical magazine called Weekly World News in 1999, and Patrick Ross has found no evidence that a person named Peter Weisrick ever lived. Also, the Red Baron was said to have flown a Fokker triplane, which did not exist yet. Richthofen was known to have been using his deadly Albatros D3 instead at the time. Lieutenant Frederick Ardsley was on a patrol route in northern France when he saw an identical scout plane, Experimental 5, flying next to him. This was the first time he saw the Valkyrie. Ardsley says that the pilot of the Valkyrie was a woman with long golden hair. She took off her goggles, laughed loudly, and looked at him with cornflower blue eyes. Then she blew him kisses and did a can-can dance on the edge of the cockpit. Ardsley tried to keep up with her, but she was too skilled, and it was easy for her to get around. At one point, the Valkyrie's plane, which had a golden Venus symbol on the fuselage, flew up into a bank of clouds at 20,000 feet, and Ardsley had to make a controlled dive back down because his plane had stalled. When German pilot Albert Roll said that he had been shot down by a blonde-haired woman flying a red-nosed SE-5 biplane, the story spread quickly. Soon, a lot of other German pilots said that they had seen a fierce female pilot with skills that couldn't be matched. However, Arch Whitehouse, a World War I veteran and aviation novelist, had a different take. The White House believed that the Valkyrie myth began as a joke between young pilots who were trying to lighten up the seriousness of war. It is said that these pilots decided to put on a play at Christmas for a squadron party, and some of them had to dress up as women and jump into the cockpits of their biplanes as part of the play. The men dressed as women got a quiet laugh from their comrades, and the enduring image of a bombshell blonde piloting an aircraft began. Nigel Watson, a historian, says that. However, there's no evidence of Ardsley having existed either. Also, it is said that the lieutenant was in the 49th Squadron, where SE-5 wasn't used for planes. Number 2. Ghost at EPRA. On December 1915, a man named William Spate was spending another bitterly cold night in the trenches near EPRA, Belgium. Then he got the biggest surprise of his life. He sat down in the dim light of the candle, and then he felt like someone else was with him. Spate was shocked when he turned around and saw the ghost of his friend, who had seen him die on the battlefield. The ghost of his friend didn't say anything to him and vanished as quickly as he had appeared in front of the Spate. The next night, Spate asked another officer to sit with him in case the ghost of his friend came back. He was surprised when the ghost did come back, but this time it was to tell him something. It stood still and pointed to a place on the floor before disappearing again. Spate didn't know what to think, so he told some of his men to dig a hole where the ghost had pointed. The soldiers looked down and found a tunnel that had been dug and was full of explosives. The bombs went off quickly, and the soldiers thanked the ghost for keeping them safe. This event was first written about in a war-themed short story contest held by Pearson's magazine in 1919. It became more likely to be true when Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote about it in his book, The History of Spiritualism. Number 1. The Valkyrie. Lieutenant Frederick Ardsley was on patrol in northern France when he first saw the Valkyrie. He also saw a Scout Experimental 5 playing next to him that was the same. Valkyrie, Ardsley said, she was a woman pilot with long golden hair, cornflower blue eyes, and a loud laugh. Then she blew him kisses and danced the can-can on the edge of a cockpit. Ardsley tried to keep up with her, but she was too good, and Ardsley was easily able to get out of the way. At one point, the Valkyrie's plane, which had a golden Venus symbol on the fuselage, flew up into a cloud bank. Ardsley had to make a controlled dive back down because his plane stalled at the height of 20,000 feet. When the German pilot Albert Roll said that an SE-5 with a red nose shot down his plane, the news paid a lot of attention to the story. It was flown by a woman with blonde hair. Soon, a lot of other German pilots said they had seen a tough female pilot who hunted in the sky with skills that couldn't be beat. Arch Whitehouse, a veteran of World War I and an author of books about flying, saw things differently. The White House thought that the Valkyrie legend started as a joke between young pilots who were trying to make war less scary. According to the story, these pilots decided to put on a play for a squadron Christmas party. Some had to jump into the cockpits of their planes while dressed as women for the play. The men who dressed up as women made their friends laugh a lot, but there is no proof that Ardsley ever existed either. It is also said that the lieutenant served in the 49th Squadron, which did not fly to SE-5 from anywhere. And that concludes Just Watch's today's episode about the paranormal encounters from World War I. Thank you for watching.